Let's jump in. I don't have source sheets. I'm sorry. No source sheets, but I will put some notes up on the Shul website. There's like a learning center section of the website. At some point, I'll put up like the laws of Pesach, and most of this will be there. This will be recorded, placed on YouTube. So let's jump in. Okay, so we are going to be discussing the laws of Pesach, because Pesach is right around the corner. It's 4 weeks away. And so we are going to start with some of the easier stuff, and then we're going to get into some of the more challenging stuff. So let's begin with the basics. The basics are that there are two prohibitions, or one prohibition, one mitzvah, and that is that, first of all, it's forbidden to eat chametz on Pesach. We all know that. It's forbidden to eat chametz. In addition, a person is supposed to must eliminate all chametz that is in one's possession. Okay, those are two things you need to do in order to have a proper Pesach. In other words, not enough that you don't eat it, you can't own chametz. You can't have chametz in your possession on Pesach, right? Both of those are going to be prohibitions. Not just, so whether you're eating someone else's chametz, or you just have chametz that's sitting in your house that you don't that you're not eating, but it's sitting there, that's yours. That's a problem. Okay, so biblically, what a person could do. Biblically, again, we're going to get to rabbinically in a moment, but biblically, what a person could do is before Pesach, they don't have to clean for Pesach at all. Before Pesach, they say, I relinquish ownership of all the chametz that's in my possession, and that works. There's a concept called being mafkir something, hefker, relinquishing your ownership to something, and a person could do so, and in doing so, that would take care of the issue of owning chametz. Okay, so then you make sure not to eat the chametz again. Technically, biblically, you do not have to go ahead and eat and clean your house. All you'd have to do is relinquish your ownership of everything that is in your house, all the chametz that's in your house, and you'd be good to go. It'd be great. Okay. Problem is that the rabbis were concerned that if you just went ahead and relinquished your ownership to your box of Cheerios and your cakes and all the other yummy leftovers you have from Purim, that on Pesach you're going to be absentmindedly be like, oh look, a cookie, and what you sometimes do, and you eat, without thinking, and you're going to grab this cookie and you're going to eat it. That's a concern. And therefore the rabbi said simply relinquishing your ownership for all these things is not allowed. Rather, what you have to do is you have to remove, in addition to, let's say, so in addition to not eating chametz, in addition to, let's say you want to relinquish your ownership, that's not enough. You can't have, even if it's ownerless, you can't have any chametz that is in your possession. But here there's an important caveat, and that is that when it comes to any chametz in your possession, since we're talking about a rabbinic decree about eating the chametz, so the concern is things that are really going to be eaten. You would not go ahead on a random Sunday morning, even if you were cleaning the house for Shabbos, and you found 2 crumbs, you'd be like, oh, look, 2 crumbs, and eat it. That's not happening. What might happen is you might see a cookie on the table, you'd be like, oh, that's a waste, that's a yummy, delicious cookie. I'm not going to eat it, right? So therefore, when we're talking about, eating, obviously you can't even have a crumb of chametz. I want to be very clear. Eating a crumb of chametz on Pesach would be in violation of a biblical, whatever. Yeah, it would be completely forbidden. It would be completely forbidden. Obviously but in terms of having chametz in your house, so before Pesach, which we'll get to soon, you relinquish ownership of anything you're unaware of. Okay, there's a phrase, there's a passage, a paragraph that you're going to say called chamira, which relinquishes ownership of all the crumbs and all that stuff. But even after you do that, if there is anything which is of substance, things which are, let's say, the size of like a golf ball or a small matchbox or larger, that's what we're concerned about. We're not concerned about crumbs. Okay, we're also not concerned about things, fine. So we're also not concerned about things which you cannot easily reach. Again, because once you've relinquished ownership, so biblically you're good, but now there's like a rabbinic concern, I might go ahead and eat it. So if there's a cookie on the floor of your bedroom, first of all, what in the world? Second of all, just kidding. Second of all, there's a cookie on the floor of your bedroom, so you may go ahead and pick it up and eat it. That's a concern. But if there's a cookie behind your fridge, and it takes, 2 people to move your fridge, or even it takes 1 person, but it's certainly not an easy thing to do. It's behind your couch. You may be able to move your couch on your own, but it's not easy. You're good. You're good. I can even see the cookie behind the couch. If I look under, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a box of cookies. Now, it may be a wise thing to do because you don't want mice in your house and you don't want rodents in your house. But if you're asking me halachically, I'm staying in my lane over here. You're asking as a rabbi, if there is a cookie that you could see behind your couch, sitting behind your couch, and you can't easily reach it because you got to go on the floor and stretch your hand and get the cookie, you 100% can leave that cookie there. 100%. Okay, so for example, another example, a cookie. This happens in, it depends where your air vents are in your house. But at my house, many of the air vents are on the floor, and I have some young kids. So you look in the air vent, you're like, what do you know? There's the missing rugelach, right? So again, you want to remove it because you're not silly and you don't want crumbs like that sitting in your house. It's not a good idea. But halachically, for the laws of Pesach, it is beyond the vent, and the only way to get it is to take a little screwdriver and start jimmying out, whatever the term is, and like getting the thing out. You could see the thing right there. It is not a problem. Okay, so let's review again. In any situation where you are, so your kitchen, we're going to be extra cautious around having crumbs. Why? Because if a crumb falls into your food on Pesach and you eat it, that is a tremendous no-no. Okay, but let's remove the kitchen because there the concern is eating it. That's going to fall into your food, and therefore in the kitchen we're going to be, very, very careful to clean things thoroughly. But in your other areas of the house, areas where you're not regularly eating, you do not have to worry about crumbs because you relinquished ownership of those crumbs already in Kol Chamira, and all the concern is I'm going to eat it. We're not concerned in your living room or in your bedroom. You're going to go and pick up crumbs and put it in your mouth. It's not happening. We're not concerned about that, and you're not even concerned about larger items as long as you've relinquished ownership. Again, you have to say this line of Kol Chamira, which we'll get back to, and they are in a place which are very hard to reach. Okay? Any questions? Great. Okay. Sorry? Let's all go home, right? And so, which also another piece of this is that when it comes to searching for chametz, which we'll get to as well, you only have to search. Again, this is just in terms. There's an obligation to search for chametz, but the obligation to search for chametz is only in places where it is normative for food to go. So that is going to be entirely subjective. If you have a house with a bunch of teenagers, okay, then there is food everywhere, okay, and if the little kids, there's food everywhere because there is no concept of only eating the kitchen unless you really have an iron fist. But in my house, I have to search everywhere because the kids are eating. The little kids are eating in the bathroom, and the big kids are eating in their bedroom all day. And fine, so we have to search everywhere. Okay, fine. I don't run a tight ship. But the point is, if you're living in a house where you're the one in charge, if you have kids, you're not the one in charge. If you're in the house, you're in charge, and so you know that no one ever eats any food out of the kitchen and dining room. Okay, so then. That's only place. So outside of those areas, you don't have to check. You have to check in places where it's normal for food to be. So if it's not normal for food to be in those places, you don't have to check. Yes.
Does that includes the search you do,
Mm-hmm.
the night before, so you don't have to put your little packages of bread all over the house and search.
Strictly speaking, that is true. That is true. Is it a good idea to look around everywhere? Sure. We always, without fail, you get these great surprise stories. Like, oh yeah, there was that one time we had whatever it is, and we forgot about it. So it's a good idea, but strictly speaking, that bedika is the same as any searching you're doing earlier is just a lead up to that bedika. It's that search, and so yeah, technically on Erev Pesach, you and your house, you'd have to just check the kitchen and the dining room, but it'd be a good idea to search beyond that. Yeah.
That are just stored dishes that they're selling? This is my question.
I do sell your dishes.
No,
The ones that they're selling?
They're
clean out all my cabinets.
Right? That have
Yeah,
dishes,
yeah.
Right? That there might be crumbs there, right? Or
You don't need.
Halachically, you don't have to.
and
I
they're
know,
cleaning
but
out
I'm
their
crazy.
mixers, and there are things that might have little.
Halachically, you don't have to.
I know, but I do it.
If you want to, look, I want to be so clear over here. There is a beautiful thing that the Jewish people, Pesach's a big deal. Pesach's a big deal. There is a beautiful line, a beautiful insight from Rabbi Sachs. He points out that the two holidays that are most widely observed are Pesach and Yom Kippur. I mean, by widely observed, people who are not so observant in other areas, Pesach and Yom Kippur. And it's so counterintuitive because Pesach and Yom Kippur are the most difficult holidays, right? Pesach, you eat nowadays, fine, we have so many things available. But think historically, people are eating there's two foods, like potatoes and meat and potatoes and potatoes and meat, and some matzah. So that was it. But yet people observe Pesach. I was just speaking to this woman who was telling me that she doesn't keep kosher the whole year, but Pesach they keep kosher. And Pesach she is makbid like you would not believe. Her husband brought one thing. She's like, no, we have to get new dishes. And during the year they're eating treif. Okay, but Pesach, whatever, right? So and Yom Kippur is the hardest day. It's a fast day. If I were to pick the two, Purim and Simchas Torah, right? I don't know, be choice. But the point is, sorry. Chanukah, okay, fine, we'll make a list. But Pesach, but what is it? He suggests, and there's a fascinating insight, and that is that people take seriously things that are serious. In other words, when people see their parents really stressing, again, not in a bad way, but this is important. I'm extending myself, I'm doing something beyond, then it's real, right? As long as it's just okay, it's cute. I put 8 candles. Again, It's a mitzvah. It's beautiful. But the point is, like, there's no sacrifice. The sacrifice itself is the strongest message that this is important, that this is real. So, I think it's a fascinating insight. Like, it demonstrates, again, I'm not saying to be intense. I'm not saying to be, like, have like, there should be a cloud hanging over your house before Pesach. No, not at all. That'd be bad. But the point is that when they see seriousness, when they see people sacrificing, and they see the parents and the grandparents extending themselves all year, whatever, but they're extending themselves for something, then that makes an impression. So the bottom line is, when it comes to Pesach, the Jewish people are wonderful, and they say, like, okay, we have this is the halacha, but we want to go above and beyond. It's a beautiful thing, right? So it's a beautiful thing. I'm not knocking it in any way. You're asking me, is it necessary? It's 100% not necessary.
But it's led to this belief that Pesach is horrible.
Okay, I agree. So it's a balancing act. It's an important balancing act. On the one hand, I'm going to tell you what is necessary, and it's important to know. At the same time, there are minhagim. People have, like, their customs. We're going to go above and beyond about certain things. They're beautiful, but if it's going to cause stress and going to cause people to, like, be pulling their hair out, et cetera, or like yelling and screaming in the house, then yeah, drop it. Yeah. Yes.
And you have to be careful if you're selling a cabinet. You're not selling the dishes.
You're not selling the dishes, which we'll get to as well. You're not selling the dishes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's a great opportunity for spring cleaning. Let's be honest, right? I'm saying it's a wonderful opportunity. And everyone's but know and communicate to yourself, and especially if there are impressionable people in the house, this is spring cleaning. This is not God. This is your neurotic parents, right? Or whatever. This is not Hashem. This is not the halacha. I'm doing this because I want to take advantage of this and make a clean house, which is wonderful. But it's important as we're laying out, like, yeah. Okay, fine. So let's apply this practically. Okay. So books and benchers, right? So I don't know about you. I love eating. If I'm by myself, I'll eat while I'm reading a book. That's just something that we do. Now the problem is that means many of my books may have crumbs, right? So are you obligated to go through all your books? Not at all. Right? Why? Because at the end of the day, it's crumbs, right? What you should not do is not bring those books, any books, or certainly not benchers they use all year, do not bring those to the table, because they likely are full of crumbs, and therefore you do not have to go through them. And so here's a good example. In my house, my father, he would go through every one of his books, and he had a lot of svarim, like a lot. And so it was my job is to go through every single book and go through it. This was an absolute stringency. Okay, this is what he did. Okay, in my house, we don't do that.
Did he tell you it was a
An
stringency?
Israeli.
No,
Like
but
you
I was...
thought it was...
Yeah, I don't know. I thought, whatever. I didn't put any thought into it. I was said. I don't know. I grew up in a different generation. Let's do it. Okay, we'll do it. What's it called? Whatever. But I'm still from. Okay, what's it called? Just try. But okay. But he did not communicate that. It's not a knock on him. He's probably going to listen to this, so I have to be careful. What's it called? But the point is that, yeah, so if you want to do that, that's wonderful. I don't do that. But if a person is not going to go through the books, you cannot, you cannot. I'm not going to say should not. You really should not be bringing any books to your table on Pesach, because if you're not so careful during the year, then it's very possible these books have crumbs. And your benchers for during the year, theoretically, you could clean them really well. I would so strongly advise, do not have separate benchers for Pesach, because they have crumbs, they have stuff in it. It's a really bad idea to bring those to the table. Can I tell you it's forbidden? I can't say it's forbidden if you scrub them. It's really not a good idea. Bottom line is, benchers, which go with the table, just get separate ones for Pesach. Yes?
What if you don't bring books to the table?
Okay, then you don't.
Not benchers, obviously.
Yeah, then you could. I'm saying then there's no right. I'm saying it's if you know that you bring, again, it's like if you know that you bring food to the basement, et cetera, et cetera. If you know that you're very careful about not reading books, then whatever, eat books yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Who doesn't bring books to the table?
Okay, so kitchen. Okay, so let's just describe the kitchen for a moment. I mentioned this, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. Again, in the kitchen, there is more of a kitchen and dining space. There's more of a concern. Because again, let's just review the laws. I relinquish ownership. I look around, there's no cookies around. Okay, good. So the problem is I'm eating there. And if I'm eating there, if there is a crumb that falls into something, if there is even if it's, this might sound a little neurotic, but if in my chair, right, many chairs, depends how they're made, you look at some of those chairs which have like the gap between like the wood and there's a lot of crumbs there. And so on Pesach, you might like drop your whatever, and then whatever, maybe not you, but a kid is going to go ahead and pick it up, and they may, there's crumbs, there's literally crumbs there. You see the crumbs there, so you want to be careful about that. Why? Not because you own it. You've relinquished ownership, and it's crumbs. Not because of the rabbinic decree that you might eat crumbs, no. But just practically, if it's in an area that you're going to be eating, there's a legitimate concern that crumb is going to get mixed in to the food. And therefore, at any dining space, kitchen, dining area, there you want to be extra careful, about crumbs, and again, the crumbs are going to be much more about your chairs typically, and B, transfer of flavor. And that is a halachic term. It sounds a little funny in English when you say it out loud, but what it means is that any space where any chametz came into contact with it in a hot fashion, so halachically, right, why are your pots and pans considered fleshig or milchig? Okay, so if all you did, if someone asked me the other day, my serving cup that I used for milchig was used for something fleshig, etc. I said, why are you calling it a serving cup for milchig? And they said, because I use it. I said, do you ever wash it in water? They whatever, they don't have a dishwasher, they rinse it off. It's milchig. I'm sorry, it's nothing. Because until you use something for hot, I'm not saying you should do this ideally, but my point is that the only way there is something becomes milchig or fleshig is when there is something used. You're washing the dishwasher with other milchig things or fleshig things. You wash the sink with other milchig things, or you've used it for hot things. There's a transfer of flavor, right? So your fork became milchig because you used it for a cheese blinza or for lasagna, or you washed it with your other dairy stuff, right? Then it becomes milchig, and therefore even if you cleaned it, it retains its status as being milchig. Similarly, if you've used items with hot water or hot foods with chametz, it is now chametz stick. And therefore, your countertop in your kitchen is chametz stick because you likely put a hot piece of bread or something on it, or you used it with chametz and something spilled, there's chametz. And your oven is chametz stick. And your table is chametz stick because it came presumably. Although, yeah, fine. But the bottom line is those are all areas where food comes into contact in a hot fashion. We're not going to discuss how to kosher today, but that's where the koshering comes in because those areas in the kitchen come into contact with hot items.
But not your chair.
Not your chair. That's why you don't have to kosher your chair. You have to clean your chair. You have to clean your chair.
You're talking about, this whole conversation started when you talk about crumbs that fall.
Yeah, so I'm talking about the kitchen now broadly. I'm sorry, I'm talking about the kitchen broadly. Yes, so in the kitchen there's two concerns. One is crumbs. The other concern is any area where things come into contact in a hot fashion, okay? So we're not going to talk about koshering today, but we will talk about, so let's talk about cleaning the kitchen before we get to koshering. So your dining chairs, your kitchen chairs, those again you have to clean meticulously because, again, maybe you will never eat some food that falls onto a chair, but people will, and it's your responsibility to make sure there are no crumbs around those things. You don't have to kosher those things. What about the table? Now, your tables, technically you could kosher, depends on what they're made of. What most people do is as follows. When it comes to transfer of flavor, of chametz, like a chametz table or countertop into something else, if there is, the only way it's going to really transfer is, let's see, theoretically, don't do this at home, but theoretically, if you took on a chametz table, you took a totally dry Pesach pan and put it on the chametz table. What's the story with that chametz? With the
Cold?
hot, everything is hot. It would still be okay. It would still be okay because two dry things coming into contact with one another are technically okay. Now, we don't do that because we're always concerned that maybe a little bit of liquid went over, and once you have a little bit of liquid, that's going to cause the transfer of the flavor. Okay? Just close your ears if this is getting too technical. But the point is that the only thing that really caused the transfer, when we're not talking about in an oven where there's steam and all that, but on a countertop, the only thing that's going to cause, let's say you have a chametz, again, table or countertop, and you have a Pesach roast, and the pan itself is dry, and they come into contact with one another, nothing happened, even though it was piping hot. But if there was a little bit of liquid in between, you just ruined you potentially, ask a shayla, you potentially just ruined your Pesach roast. Okay? So, what do you have to do because it's only when it's liquid that is coming into contact between the two, that's what caused the transfer of the flavor between the two things. So, therefore, with that in mind, what we typically do with, let's say, a table, is people will cover with something very thick, right? They'll cover it with like an extra like plastic, some people take two plastic tablecloths or a very thick one, and what that allows for is that even if there's a spill, the spill is not going to go ahead. If it's a thick enough plastic, even if there's a spill, it will not cause any liquid to come directly into contact with the table that's chametz stick, and therefore even if it's piping hot food that spills, it's going to prevent a transfer of flavor between the two. Okay? So that's the background. Again, the bottom line is, if that was too whatever, and that is that you want to cover your tables with some thick, a tablecloth is not enough. You want to cover something water resistant. And that's where, again, people put two things of plastic or one thick thing of plastic. But the point is you want to cover with something that prevents water touching directly onto the table. Again, that's the common practice on Pesach. I just want to give you the reason why. Yes?
So if it's thick, I think, by the laws of physics or whatever, it's enough. But I recall correctly from last year, the star case says 3. What's the...
You're just being careful. Just being careful. There's no halacha 3. There's no halacha 3. I don't know. People used to say 2. Whatever. The point is, sorry,
But
4.
Vitamin used to say 4.
Ay, ay, ay.
I'm
Okay.
like,
Anyway.
40 years ago. I don't know.
Okay. So again,
Maybe
all
they
these.
weren't really thick.
Yeah, first of all, they make them much. You get these really
Yeah.
thick gesund ones, right? I mean, you have the plastic plates that look like they're China, right? So you have the plastic tablecloths which are really thick. It has to be thick. It has to be something you're confident it's not going to tear. It's over Yom Tov. So if it's like super thick, which I think they have some really thick ones, it's fine. There's no halacha of 2 or 3. You just want to make sure that it's really going to prevent liquid. So 2 is, I don't know. I do 2. Okay, I don't know. The point is that, and 2's probably pushing it. 2's being very careful. 2's being very careful. Nothing's going to spill. Okay, tablecloths, dish towels. The custom is to use ones that are designated for Pesach. That said, if you clean them well, they're really, again, what are they coming into contact with? There's no chametz embedded in them. If the chametz embedded in them, then get a new dishwasher. Go get a new laundry machine. But there's no chametz embedded in them. There's something which maybe absorbs some, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So technically, you could use tablecloths and dish towels as long as they're really clean that are used all year. The minhag, the custom is to use special ones. But again, if for whatever reason that's not practical, technically you could use the same ones. Again, as long as they were cleaned very well.
If you use those plastic covers over
Then for
every
sure.
meal, then there's really no.
Then for sure. Then you never, yeah, exactly. 100%. Okay, fine. So again, outside the eating spaces, how much cleaning time should be, how much time should you spend cleaning? It depends. It's subjective, right? So if you have a house where there's not a lot of food around, it should be pretty quick, right? It should be a pretty quick clean for the rest of the house. If you have, again, young children or you like to eat all over the house, okay, so it's going to take a little bit longer. But again, what you're looking for are not crumbs. You're looking for cookies. You're looking for candies, and even candies are probably kidney but whatever. Get rid of the candies. The point is, you're looking for things of substance. You're not looking for crumbs. And if you want to look for crumbs, that's fine, but don't blame it on God. Certainly don't blame it on me, okay? That's on you. That's cool. That's fine, right? So again, you're looking for things of substance, which again, I imagine most houses are already you're 90% there. Again, the kitchen and dining room, that's going to take you time. But the rest of your house should be a relatively quick clean. It should not take forever. Yeah, I think. Okay? Fine. Let's talk about, so again, we're not going to talk about koshering today. We're going to talk about that later. Cupboards, shelves, or drawers, which you're using for Pesach. Forget the ones you aren't using for Pesach. Those you totally could close up. But the ones you're using for Pesach. So where you keep let me ask you a question. Where you keep your plates, I don't know, in some cupboard or whatever it is, how many times do you put chametz in there? Go ahead, Cyril.
Those fall in those
Yes.
drawers
No,
all
I didn't say drawer. I said your cupboard where you put your plates up above. Yes, those drawers need to be cleaned out well, 100%. But your cupboards, okay, I don't know, in all the houses I lived in, right? There's cupboards above, right? And there are bowls and there are plates and all that stuff. How many? So my wife sometimes will hide food, in there. Okay, but that food is not being stuck there. It's in a package, whatever it is. She puts it up there.
Forget about it.
Okay, fine. So you want to look. You want to make sure there's not a package there. But you're not looking for crumbs, right? But in other words, there's no crumbs. There's dirt. There's a little bit of dirt there, right? And it's a good idea to clean it. But so just let's just appreciate what's happening over here. So let's say you have cupboards that you're going to clear up from the chametz stuff. And you're going to put your Pesach stuff in. Okay, so you want to do whatever. Bottom line is you want to make sure there's nothing there. It should take you 30 seconds per shelf. You want to spritz it, clean it. I'm telling you now, 99% of it's going to be dirt. There might be a crumb or two, 100%, but it's very rare. It'd be weird that there are crumbs there because, again, you're not putting food up above. Do you have to line it? Many people have the custom of lining it, but technically speaking, again, let's go through the rules. Nope, the crumbs you just took care of because you spritzed and you cleaned it out, okay? The other thing is hot food coming into contact with it. You're not putting hot food there, that for sure not. So you definitely don't have to line it. Again, there's a beautiful custom people have of being stringent and lining it. Kol hakavod. If you want to, that's okay. But strictly speaking, certainly those cupboards above, anything above that you're never really putting chametz there, you want to just do a very cursory, quick clean. You do not have to line it. Yes?
So I don't use the cabinets above the counter, tape them up, don't open the...
Perfect. Done. Okay, the drawers. Yes, the drawers you're going to have to want to clean out a lot better. I'll get to your question in a second. When it comes to drawers, yes, you're right. The drawers are much dirtier, right? As clean as your house may be, your drawers will typically, because they're anything under, typically, and there are things which are being open and closed all the time, yeah, they're going to have more crumbs there. So again, you clean it out really well. You don't lining it, the value of lining is to prevent, if there was hot something, it's going to go on to something else. You're not putting hot stuff in your drawer. Maybe something once spilled in your lifetime. Maybe, right? But we're not really talking about hot stuff. So again, You clean it out really well, because yes, there likely are crumbs there. You want to clean it really well. It's probably one of the more difficult places to clean. Okay, you get rid of the crumbs. It could take you 5 minutes, whatever it is, I don't know, with a brush, whatever you want to use, and then you're done. Again, you could line it to be extra careful, maybe to prevent the crumbs that are in the corner that you can't reach. So it might be extra valuable to line it there, 100%, and it's a beautiful thing, but strictly speaking, you are not obligated to line it. Yes?
Oh, yes, so what if you have cabinets that you store food in the kitchen,
Yeah.
and you're going to empty those for Pesach, is it better to line?
So again, sometimes I just want to be clear about what the function of the lining is, right? You definitely have to clean them out. I have cupboards which I are snack places. They're full of crumbs. Okay, again, no one put hot cocoa, chametz stick hot cocoa down there. I don't think, right? They're full of crumbs. You have to clean them really well. The value of putting a line over there is that if I'm not sure I cleaned it really well, then what it's going to allow for is that when I start putting the Pesach food over there, then it's going to go onto those things, and therefore if there's crumbs that are kind of embedded or like hard to reach, it does not show those crumbs. It's a good thing. I put liners down. I just want to tell you, I would put liners down on those types of things, but it's extra. I just want to be clear. It's extra. It's not obligatory. It's if you knew that you cleaned it really well, you took the thing out and you went back and forth. Depends on your cupboard. Depends where you're able to. You take your shelf out and you clean it really well. I'm more concerned personally, like the ones that I'm able to take out, I'm not concerned about because I clean them. The ones that I can't remove the bottom floor, the bottom the bottom shelf, which is the floor that I can't take out. Yeah, there's probably some corners over there. So having something a little bit elevated is helpful. Again, what are we concerned about? We're concerned is that what's going to happen is that the food that I put there is going to touch the crumb, and then I'm going to take the crumb out, and it's going to come out when I pick up the box, and it's going to come onto my table, and then it's going to get mixed into my food. It's a little far-fetched, but again, it's Pesach. It's a good thing. I put liners down on those types of places. I don't put it on the top places, but like on the places that I put liners down, but it's not obligatory. Clean well. Okay. Soaps, shampoos, and lipsticks, there are many different opinions. There are those who are stringent to make sure that they don't have any chametz in them, and there are large lists of what types of things are allowed. That said, many are of the opinion that if they are things that are inedible, which your soap and shampoo typically is, then you do not need to get new ones for Pesach. There is a pretty widely held, we'll call it a stringency, but there's a pretty widely held stringency, and that is that things that come into contact with your mouth. So for example, toothpaste, lipstick, chapstick, things of that nature should be chametz free, even though technically they're not fit for eating. You're not taking a bite out of your lipstick, I hope. But it's something which typically comes into contact with your mouth, and your mouth, you eat chametz all year long, etc. So those things we try, if possible. It's something you're going to be eating. Your lipstick gets into your food, right? Sometimes, whatever it is. So ideally, those things should be kosher for Pesach. And the Star K and the OU and all these organizations have long lists of ones which are kosher for Pesach. And I believe that the local cosmetic people have their own list of things which they will, tell you ahead of time are approved. Yes.
But if it's something kosher Pesach that you use all year, is it enough to
then you could just
wipe off your lipstick?
Yeah,
or do you need to
because
get a new one?
you're not eating. It's totally fine to rub it off. Yeah, if what you have, because again, you're not. Or same with your toothpaste, right? Meaning even there you don't have to even rub off. Maybe you want to rub off a tiny bit touching your toothpaste, but it's already probably pushing it. You 100%. So if you have your lipstick all year long,
Pesach dick, but
sorry?
It won't feel Pesach dick.
Okay, that's on you. That's on you.
Right.
Don't blame God. But yeah, it's on you.
But
100%. 100%, right? So if you have, again, just want to repeat the question, if you have lipstick or chapstick or toothpaste, those are things which are not coming to contact, the tube is not coming, or whatever, the tube? Okay. Is not coming into contact with food, right? It's the reason you want to have kosher Pesach stuff is because it's going to be on your lips, you're going to be eating food. It's ideal, even if it's not really considered food, but you're eating something which might be chametz, you really want to be careful. But if you had one that you used all year long, you take a lipstick or chapstick, you take your napkin, whatever it is, your Q-tip, whatever it is, and you wipe off the top layer, it's really
A
fine.
lot of the Shabbos lipsticks have sponge applicators that you put them on. So that I think probably is a problem, right?
It's not really a problem. Again,
Because
the issue over here is that the issue isn't that you have face was full, you just ate babka cake, and you have crumbs all over, and then you took the sponge. That never happened, ever, right? You're not going to start putting that applicator, or whatever it's called, on until your mouth is, your face is clean, right? So the only concern is that it's on your lips now, on Pesach, and it's something which is chametz stick, and someone which is potentially chametz stick, and you're eating it together, and it's going to go, and you're going to be digesting something which is chametz stick. That's the concern. The concern isn't, you're not, yeah.
I
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It sounds wrong. It sounds wrong, but it makes sense.
Okay. So again, if you want to be strict, 100%. But just toothbrush is also it is normative to get your toothbrush. Look at your toothbrush carefully one day. It's gross. What's it called? But as clean as they are, they capture they're bristles, right? They capture stuff. And so therefore, the right thing to do is to get a new toothbrush for Pesach or whatever. It's not a bad idea to get a new toothbrush every once in a while. Anyways, this message is brought to you by your dentist. Okay, fine. Pills. Okay, if something is inedible, okay, like we said above, we don't treat it as chametz. Okay, the challenge is if you're actually digesting it, right? So until lipstick, we're saying, okay, it's getting a little bit on it, but with pills, you're actually digesting it, right? So there's a question over here. If doing so gives it the status of food. Are you with me? In other words, it's inedible, right? A pill, no one's going to say a pill is food, right? A pill. But since it's coming into my mouth, I'm eating it, does that by definition cause it to now be considered food for me while I'm eating it? And therefore, there is a matter of discussion, a matter of debate about how to treat pills. Okay, that said, that's context. With that in mind, if a person has any medicine that is bitter or tasteless, your typical pill, a person has medicine that their doctors prescribed, you're typically going to be eating, as adults. It's bitter, it either has no taste or it has like some terrible taste. All those things that you're swallowing, I would not stop. I'm not even dream of stopping. Just continue taking those medicines, okay? Where it's things which are more not obligatory, like something like vitamins, which, again, if you absolutely have to take this vitamin, then again, I'll treat it like medicine. But if it's something where, okay, I feel like I need more vitamin C, vitamin D, whatever it's going to be, like these are just extras. So then ideally you really want to find, even if you're swallowing it, because of the opinion, which says that when I swallow something, I treat it like it's actually food. Therefore, if it's not absolutely necessary, I would try to find an alternative that is chametz free. Okay, there's a huge market now of like quote unquote kosher vitamins, and they're sensitive to being Pesach. They're a little more expensive, but you throw it in the rest of your Pesach bill, it's all good. But the point is that again, if it's not absolutely necessary, it's something you do as an extra. Okay, even if it's helpful, but it's something like again, if you decided you need more whatever, vitamin X, and it's not like you're in a dangerous situation, whatever, you decide you want to have more, it's probably not a bad idea, and you wait, you're going to miss it for 8 days, like nothing will happen, right? So in a situation like that, you should ideally get kosher for Pesach vitamins for that reason, okay? Fine. Anything that's going into your eyes, ears, nose, those do not have to be kosher for Pesach whatsoever. Throat sprays, etc., they don't have to be kosher for Pesach. Okay, any other medicine questions? Yes?
So, I take pills at, dinner and I drop it on my plate. I would, and it would make sense to me to say on Pesach, I don't put it on my plate.
It's probably a good idea.
Because
Yeah, they have a little powder on them. I don't know what they're made. I have no idea what they're made of. Yeah.
whatever mechanism they use to maintain the integrity of the medication.
100%. Yeah, that's a good idea. I would not put it directly with like on a plate. I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Yes.
What about, it's a supplement, it's not a medicine, but a doctor told me I should take it, and it tastes like fish. It's gross. I gag every time I take it.
Is that like a subjective, I don't like the taste? Or is that meaning, if it's something which is like objectively like...
Fishy. I don't know. It's like...
It's hard, again, I can't answer, like, meaning, if it's something which is objectively, this is like bitter tasting, like everyone would agree, this is like, doesn't have a good taste, then we don't treat that as a food type of thing. If it's something which is like, I don't like it, as opposed to other people do like it, I can't assess it.
Who likes a fish? Does anybody here like fish?
I mean, people like fish.
No, I love fish, but a fishy medicine?
Oh, yeah, well, swallow it quickly.
It's hard to,
Gummies, you have gummy vitamins.
No, but those you chew, that's...
No, but you chew it, so.
No, this is a capsule.
yeah.
Different beast.
I literally gag every time.
Right.
I have to take it.
You have to take it. And it's like a liquid?
No,
It's a capsule. Yeah, if it's a capsule and you're swallowing it, you're not really chewing it. There's definitely much to rely upon, so just take it. Okay. A few more things that don't need to be kosher for Pesach: paperware and plasticware. Okay, question always comes up: what about the cornstarch? That's oftentimes the cornstarch is kitnios, which we'll talk about more kitnios later. So typically we do not eat kitnios, but it's kitnios that is what's the term that they use? That it's nifsa la'achila. It is something which is like invalidated from eating. Right? You're not eating your plate. Right. So bottom line is nifsa la'achila, and therefore not everyone, but most of it, the OU, I think, the OU, and others are the opinion that cornstarch that is embedded into your plasticware, plateware, whatever it is, don't worry about it. And therefore, all that kind of stuff, there are those who will sell it with kosher Pesach signs on it. You do not need to get kosher. You don't have to check the list before buying your paperware, plasticware. All that stuff is fine, even if there's cornstarch. Dish soap. Okay, this is a little trickier.
Tell me the phrase in Hebrew again?
Nifsal la'achila, which means like literally invalidated from eating. It's not invalidated, it just means like it's no longer food. Yeah.
What about like gloves that I use for food prep? I use my hands, right? So it's
Right.
gloves.
Yeah, so the bottom line is it's not really going into the, so what's your,
It's cornstarch on it.
cornstarch on them? Yeah, I mean the same as the plate, meaning it's no different than a plate. And cornstarch, it's you're not eating the gloves are even worse tasting than the plates. Why would I know that? I don't know. But the right, they're disgusting. I mean, it's anything on those gloves is no different than a plate. It's cornstarch. Yeah. Yes.
You can use them for
Dixie
food.
plates, you know.
Yes. Yes. Again, there are different opinions. This is the OU's position. I think it's worth relying on that. My humble opinion, but yeah, fine. Okay, dish soap. So strictly speaking, you do not need to have kosher Pesach dish soap. This is one of those areas. Why? Because it's not food. It's soap, right? That said, there are many who are careful when it comes to things that touch the food directly. Then again, to make sure that it's. Again, here we're potentially talking about chametz, maybe, possibly. Again, it's very unlikely, but many people go ahead and it's like you're rubbing it into your food all day. You're sitting there and it's hot. Again, keep in mind with your dish soap, you have hot water, whether it's a dishwasher or the washing the dishes, so it's hot, and there's much more of a concern of something going directly, that's sitting there rubbing against it. So people are careful typically to get ones that are kosher for Pesach, and again, there are many on the list which are kosher for Pesach. Strictly speaking, your dish soap does not have to be because it's not really food, but there are many who are strict when it comes to dish soap because of all those factors. It's not that it's hot and it's coming into contact with it with a lot of piping hot water, so therefore to have dish soap that's kosher for Pesach. Is it mandatory? No, but that is a normative custom. Okay, liquid cosmetics that contain alcohol, wheat germ, or vitamin E is a matter of debate. So those include like perfume, cologne, shaving lotion, aerosol, like spray deodorants. There are different opinions. There are many who are lenient and say those do not need to be. They are not really edible. Again, I remember seeing a video or a picture during the Ukrainian-Russia war, where there was like some surprise attack by the Ukrainians. They come into this house where the Russians were using as their base, and you see, and they were clearly besieged for a while, and you see on the table, basically rubbing alcohol, like they were drinking the rubbing alcohol to, this is what alcoholics do, unfortunately. They'll use cologne, they'll use perfume. So technically it is edible, and therefore there are those who take issue with these things. Bottom line is many argue that it's not really, we don't treat that as food, and therefore there are others who will use it. Again, matter of debate.
Can you name many? You don't want to
I don't know. I don't want to go there. Yeah.
You're not talking about rubbing alcohol. The rubbing alcohol is not ethanol.
Okay, it's like the perfumes.
Isopropyl.
Okay, I mean for like the perfume. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
like perfume. Sorry, yes, correct. Like perfumes, cologne, and sorry,
Purell.
Purell. Is that the same as the?
I don't know, but I know that my daughter works in the hospital, and there's certain people that come in and they have to take down the Purell.
Interesting.
because the
Interesting.
alcohol
For that
is
reason.
weird.
Okay. Again, many. I do not put those things away, personally. Okay, fine. Okay. One thing that's important to keep in mind for any pet owners, and that is your pet food cannot be chametz stick. Okay. Why? Because I can't own edible. Right. That's edible. Again, I'm not going to eat it on a good day. But if a person push comes to shove, they could eat. They may eat such things. Now, it's important to distinguish. A person is allowed to own kitnios, okay? So you can't eat kitnios, us Ashkenazim, but you're allowed to own kitnios, and therefore your food for you could give your pet, rice and corn or whatever it is. You can't eat it, but there's no problem whatsoever owning these things, okay? But chametz you can't own, you can't have, okay? Fine. Let's now talk about selling chametz and searching for chametz, and then we'll call it a day. Okay, selling chametz. So the Gemara tells us already about a story about an individual who was traveling from one city to another with a whole huge shipment of chametz food, and the ship got delayed, and now they're traveling. It's going to be Pesach soon. They're about to lose all of this huge shipment. It was beer, I forgot what it was. Huge shipment of chametz. So the Gemara tells us that the owner of the beer, or whatever it was, the chametz food, sold all of his food to a fellow non-Jewish passenger, and then after Pesach, bought the food back. Okay, so from there, the Gemara tells us, from there, that's the earliest recording we have of people selling chametz for Pesach. From there, you have this minhag which developed, not a minhag, but this custom, that people go ahead and sell their chametz before Pesach. Now, Think about that case. That case is the case where you have like a person whose business it is. They are in the beer business, right? And they're going to lose this huge amount. They're going to have to get rid of it all, right? And so there are those who argue that this dispensation, this allowance, is only for people who are going to have a tremendous loss if they don't sell their items. But for a regular person, maybe this isn't allowed. Also keep in mind, we live in a different world than they lived in before refrigeration or, preservatives. Because back in the day, if you were to take your great-great-grandparents and bring them into your house and open your cupboard, they would think you own a store. They would think you own a food store, right? It's wild what's in your fridge and what's in your cupboard, right? No matter how little you have a lot. You have a lot. And therefore, there are those who argue that this whole dispensation was only for people who had big businesses. It's not for the regular people. And therefore, we as regular regular people should not go ahead and sell chametz. And some go ahead, if you look on the Star K or OU or CRC, they have these lists of things which are chametz gamor and chametz she'eno gamor, meaning there are things which are completely chametz, like bread and pretzels, and there are things which maybe there's a derivative of chametz, and there are those who will go ahead and say they will not sell anything that is chametz gamor. Their wafers and their pretzels, those they will get rid of and they'll eat before Pesach, and they'll only sell things which are like derivatives of chametz. And it's for this reason. It's for this reason that, maybe this dispensation is only allowed for, again, huge losses, but not for, $100 of losses or whatever it might be in your own home. 200, whatever it is, whatever amount of loss there are. That said, many people do sell whatever chametz they have, and there is certainly what's relied upon to do so. It's a complex sale. Why is it a complex sale? Because typically, if you sell something, I want to sell you this water bottle, I give you the water bottle, you give me money. When we're selling your chametz, when I go and I sell or work with someone else to sell chametz on your behalf, I don't have your chametz, right? So it's complicated. So we have to go through like a whole bunch of different different ways that ensure that the sale works, even though the non-Jew is not picking up the food that you have, even though so it's a very complex sale without going into all the details. And therefore, once in a while someone will call me, it's like, okay, it's 5 minutes before Pesach, I forgot to get you a form, I have a non-Jewish roommate or friend, could I go ahead and sell it? I wouldn't recommend it. Again, if it's just one piece of food and you want it, fine. But I really wouldn't recommend it because it's a very complex sale, and that's why people will ask a rabbi to be their agent, not the buyer, right? People always say, like, here, I'm going to sell you my chametz. I'm like, I'm not buying your chametz. I keep Pesach too, right? So you're not selling me your chametz. What you're doing is you are empowering the rabbi to go ahead and sell the chametz on your behalf. Right? That's what's happening over here. And so, fine. So that's one thing, to just keep in mind in terms of what's actually taking place. There are many who, in order to make it a full-fledged appointment, will do something in person with the rabbi to make it a concrete appointment. So technically, you could send in the form by mail, by email, and that's totally fine. Other people want to make it like a more formal appointment, and therefore they'll do what we call a kinyan sutter, which is basically like I'll give the person who is being appointed as agent will give you like a pen or my phone, and you will pick it up. And by picking it up, it's similar. It's like a handshake. It's basically like in certain industries, like in the diamond industry, a handshake makes the deal complete. So similar over here, to make me your agent, I'll give you something to pick up. You'll pick it up, and through that, you appoint me as your agent. It's a thing that many people do. It's not absolutely necessary. So the sale does not the appointment as an agent does not have to happen in person. It's as long as it happens, it's fine. But many people do a kinyan, some form of acquisition in person. The transfer of the money, right? When people give money, that has nothing to do with anything. There's just a custom that people either give a rabbi money during Pesach, or the rabbi's collecting money for giving it to the poor during this time. But there's no obligation. People like, oh, I didn't give money. Like, okay, that's fine. That's two totally separate things which happen oftentimes at the same time. All that needs to happen is you have to appoint the rabbi as your agent to sell your chametz. That's it. Okay? Fine. Just all background. Okay. Now, B, as it was alluded to before, you are not selling your pots and pans. Okay? You shouldn't sell your pots and pans. Why? Because there is a halacha that if you go to the store, you buy a pot from a non-Jew, then what do you have to do? You have to go and immerse it in a mikvah, right? So if I went ahead on Pesach and sold all my pots and pans, and then after Pesach I buy them back, then guess what? I have to go to the Kalim mikvah and start immersing all my utensils. Nobody wants to do that.
But was something after COVID though? There was something. I kept getting things from the OU that things had to go to the mikvah.
That's because there was a tremendous leniency where since people do not want to go out or go to a public place, they didn't immerse things. And so people were not immersing. There was not a Pesach thing. People weren't immersing things in general. It happened around Pesach. It was because COVID started, prayer time. So basically, people were buying new dishes and said, "Oh, what do I do if I'm not tovelit?" So they had a whole complex thing where you relinquish ownership, and basically when you get it back, you have to go in tovelit. But yeah, yes.
So what you said was if you buy a pot from a non-Jewish entity.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go to A to Z and buy a pot,
So the short answer is yes. In other words, it has to be something which is really, because ultimately, yes, there was a middle step over there where the A to Z owner bought it, but where's it ultimately coming from? It's coming from a non-Jew,
okay,
right?
all right.
However, it's worth noting A to Z has a couple of products where they'll say no tefillah necessary because it was either made by or owned by, or the store, if it's from Israel, then oftentimes it's going to be something which doesn't need immersion for that reason. They recently came, so you can look and A to Z something, but typically, even if it's owned by, it's a good question, sorry if it wasn't so clear, you're right. If it's owned by a Jew, the store's owned by a Jew, but it ultimately came from a non-Jew, you'd still have to be tovelit, yeah.
Just to get back to the chametz gamor.
Yeah.
Even if you don't, you get rid of your chametz gamor. What about liquor?
Yes, there are those who are lenient, similar to that idea of it's expensive, in that category of there are those who are lenient and say, listen, it's very expensive, and therefore, similar to the story of the Gemara where someone sold off their whole thing, so granted it's not thousands of dollars, but whatever, it's $100 bottle or it's going to be, so people are more lenient when it comes to those things. Okay, one more point to mention, and that is if a person's traveling to a different time zone, it's very important to tell the rabbi they're pointing as agents, because let's say you're going to Israel for Pesach, right? And so the sale that most of you are going to be engaged in, it sells the chametz on a day where it's already Pesach. Typically, this year is a little different, but typically it's going to already be Pesach in that other place. And when they buy it back, right? Well, and you might want to get your chametz back, but you don't own the chametz yet because they didn't buy it back until 7 hours later. Or let's say you're going to California, same issue, right? You're going to run into these issues. So therefore, it's just important to notify whomever you're selling about, that if you're going to be in a different time zone. Typically, there's, what we do over here is we have a sale for those going to Israel. It's a sale the night before, and then we have a sale for those, who's staying on the East Coast of North America, and then we have other things to do for those going to California. But bottom line is, you should tell whoever you're selling through because there are differences. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll talk about we'll stop over here. Have a great day. Have a great day.
Thank you.